Welcome back to 8 Cubes. We talk about the 8 most important topics in Marvel's Snap. I'm KMBest, he's Lambie Series, and there are several cards slated to be available this upcoming week. We're going to start with the one in the packs. That is Jim Hammond Human Torch, a 1/2 with an ability that gains Jim Hammond as much power every turn as you have extra energy on that turn. But it's got to be actual extra energy. So, to be clear, things like Luna Snow will work, things like Wiccan will work, things like Electro will work, but the card that stands out to me is maybe the Fallen one. If you're able to get 12 extra energy, Jim Hammond gains 6, and that is pretty cool, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, the card also kind of like just works in RHM, even though it's not exactly a thing right now, but I just always have a soft spot for RHM. Yeah, the card actually is, I think, might be a bit more playable than, like, when I first looked at it, I was like, okay, you need to put in a lot of extra effort to gain extra energy, right? But at the same time, I feel like the payoff is actually quite huge, right? Like you mentioned the Fallen one. If you actually pull that off, it's on a one drop. On a one drop, it's like +6, which is insane, right? It's just like it's basically a powerhouse on its own if you just pull it off. So I think it's a very good addition to whatever Fallen one that like you might want to play, or in general also if it's like just randomly generated from RHM, you can't really go wrong with that. It's just a really good one drop, So I think the card is just way better than I initially thought. I don't think this is like something you can specifically like just splash. It's kind of impossible to splash, right? You kind of have to actually build around it. But if the build arounds do exist in the current game, though, that's what I think.
I think that largely, like you do your Symbiote Spider-Man Fallen one, you go to 12 energy, 6 of that is extra, 7 of it is extra, really, right? That seems like a cool thing to do, and if you can do that while Jim Hammonding, that's definitely like, I know it sounds weird, but it does actually matter when you get like a free 7
actually
points
wins
of power.
Games, by the way, like
you
doing
care
that,
about that. Yeah, like having your Jim Hammond be a 1/9 and then also having 13 energy. The issue is I kind of expect your opponents to just leave anyway, but it does mean that you have like a
because
more...
it's just face up, right? It sits there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like you're sitting there, your opponent has a 1/9 and they have 13 energy, and you're like, I should stay here. Like, that's probably not a thing that's going to happen a lot. But I do think that like one of the weirdest things about playing Fallen 1 decks is that you end up playing a Fallen 1 deck, you do your combo, and then you're like, wait, I just don't even have enough power. I'm playing 2 6-drops, and like my opponent is playing discard or whatever, and I just still lose. And Jim Hammond gets you a lot closer in those games. What I do think, though, is that I don't know what other deck I'm playing him in ever at all, ever, because I don't want him in my Wiccan deck, because my Wiccan deck wants to be a Quicksilver deck. I don't want him in my Electro deck, because are we being serious about that? Yo, yeah, I definitely want that guy. I'd much rather play that guy than like War Machine Ebony Maw. Like I'm not seeing it there. And I just don't know what it is that I'd be doing with this guy that isn't the Fallen one and trying to super high roll with him, right? Like, I just don't know what I'd be doing that isn't that. And I don't think that is a really coherent thing to be building around right now. So I'm kind of like envisioning Jim Hammond just coming out and just like falling flat on his face almost a little bit.
The funny thing is, I know once again RHM is not a thing, but this card being like, it's so good, it just fills your curve.
It's a 1/6. Okay, man. It's a 1/6.
0 effort. Yeah. So like,
yes,
RHM
that's good. Yes.
Yeah, but it's not a thing now. But I wish it was.
Yeah, maybe you play like this and Quinjet as your 1-drops in RHM, and then Domino, right? Yeah. And so, like, if you ever get a 1-drop, you then have a 2-drop, and then you just do RHM stuff the rest of the game, and it's like, fine. I can see that, right? Like,
it's RHM, so free, but
yes, RHM, as we know, gets a buff in Golden Gauntlets. And so maybe we'll see some Jim Hammond show up in the next Golden Gauntlet, because RHM sure does every single time. I can see that, right? Sure. I totally buy that maybe that's what's supposed to happen. It's just, I don't think, especially right now, RHM's in like a very awkward spot, because it's typically like the ramp deck to everyone else's mid-range deck, where it's just like, I'm going to crush the mid-range decks. And there is a pretty high level of combo decks that RHM just sort of sits there and looks at and is like, ah, yes, you have beaten me. You have comboed, and I don't do anything to your 80 power Human Torch. So I do think there is not necessarily a great opportunity for RHM right now. And if Jim Hammond is an RHM Fallen 1 card, I can't see him having a big release week. Next up, and I am going off the data mines for this, there are 2 cards that SnapFan has flagged as available in limited time game modes. They are both, I believe, from Deadpool's Diner. One is Danger, the other is Super Adaptoid. Danger is first on our list. A 4/6 activate, destroy a card with less power than this. As someone who plays a lot of Thing First Steps, I look at this card and I'm like, wow, that's actually just like a 4-cost Thing First Steps. It seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, so this card is also another one of those things when I looked at the card, I was just like, normally when I look at a card, I'll just instantly think of like why this might not be that great. But when I looked at this card, I was just like, this is just good, right? Like it's a 4/6. You just play it on the board, and then you blow up a thing on your opponent's side of the board. Like you literally always get to blow up something simply because like you can choose where to play it. And the thing is, this thing blows up small cards, right? For sure. So your opponent would have like already placed where all their stuff, like they curve out, they curve out, then you just play this card into the lanes that they curve out in, and then you just blow up their card. You just like, it's not even a 4/6, it's actually like a could be like a 4/11 in terms of stats if you think about it, because of like the minus power that you get from destroying your opponent's cards. I actually think this is a very splashable card, like honestly. Like if you just like find a card in your deck that you don't really like, this is like the easiest 12 card ever. Like you just put it in your mid-range pile, put it in your, honestly, this could just go anywhere. It's just, you just put it in there, just blow up your opponent's on-curve thing, and then you'll be ahead. It's just like simple Marvel Snap, right? Just more points.
Yeah, I think that this card, like, there's a couple of specific cards that it really puts some pressure on. Like, this card puts a lot of pressure on Galacta.
The floaters, right? Like the stuff that floats on the board, right?
This card puts a lot of pressure on, like, if I'm investing in a Galacta. This card puts pressure on, like, it puts pressure on some really interesting places, right? Like it puts pressure on like a Claw, for example. It puts pressure on cards that have a lot of power wrapped up in their effect and want to be on the board to make that effect happen, right? So it puts pressure on Iron Man, it puts pressure on Ravonna Renslayer, it puts pressure on Quinjet, on V-Hand. And I think that's largely a good thing. It's just like, when I look at this, I think that like there's a very possible world where I'm playing this card and Negasonic and Killmonger and a bunch of stuff that's just like, oh look, I'm Killmongering away the stuff that would prevent me from hitting the thing you want to hit here, right? I'm also Negasonicing the other small stuff you have here. I'm playing Danger, I'm playing Shang-Chi, and suddenly like that just seems like a really good deck to me. Like if I'm playing some sort of like once if and when they revert these changes, right? I'm playing Shang-Chi, I'm playing Killmonger, I'm playing Danger, I'm playing Negasonic, and you are going to have way less cards on the board than me on a fundamental level. Super Adaptoid is the other card available, I believe, in the limited time game mode, which should be dropping on Thursday. We're going to talk about it in its specific a little bit later. Super Adaptoid is a 3/5 tech card. It's a 3/5, and it steals the activate ability of a card. It's effectively 3/5 Rogue for activate, which I personally believe means that Rogue can be a lot stronger. What's up with that? Come on now. Where do you see this card landing, and bluntly, how dependent on how good Jocasta is your ability to play this card?
I mean, bluntly, how dependent on like activates being part of like the meta, right? Is this card? Because the thing is, firstly, I talked about this like with you pre-show anyway, which is you can't go wrong with a 3/5. Like they put this at 3/5 very safely because they know that it's probably not gonna be widespread. Like it's fine to have a 3/5, it's just good stats, but like it's not gonna like hit every important thing, right? At least right now, like it's so difficult to time using this to hit an activate card. And even if you hit the activate card, it's probably not gonna benefit you as well as like if it were to be just your opponent's deck using the activate card, right? Like you steal the ability, but it's not gonna be that easy to use. So I feel like this card releasing at 3/5 is really just because like they think it's like safe. I think it's like safe for this to be a 3/5 because it's not gonna be something that's just gonna be spammed in every deck and just gonna be meta breaking. It's one of those tech cards that I feel is really, really, really dependent on meta. Like, and I don't think this is the meta for it for sure. So I mean, it's just one of those things that you just like keep in your back pocket for when the time for it to shine as a tech card comes, and then it will do its thing.
Yeah, like in the world that I'm envisioning, for the danger deck, right? Where you're just like, what if all of my cards blow up all of your cards, right? You're doing some sort of like Iron Patriot-ish mid-range thing, and then the rest of your cards are like Killmonger, Shang-Chi, Danger, Gambit, Negasonic, right? You're just like, I hate you and everything you've done. You don't get to have cards on the board. Like that's sort of the thing that I'd be afraid of in an upcoming world where I'm like a Jocasta gamer, because I feel like Danger does just as good of a job putting pressure on your activate cards as Super Adaptoid does. And that's the thing that really sticks out to me about this. Like, people they release this like Super Adaptoid, that's the tech card against activates. But like Danger, Thing First Steps, that stuff, it gives these Shang-Chi decks a way to target your cards that sit on the board and like are going to accrue value on turn 6. And they didn't really have that before. But like between Danger and Negasonic, I'm pretty sure they can obliterate a Jocasta lane without the need for a Super Adaptoid in any way. And so I don't know if this guy's even going to be needed to do his role.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned the whole Negasonic and Danger thing, because personally I'm a bigger fan of like how should I put it? Like something like Danger, whereby you can actually choose to a certain extent the target, right? Whereas for Negasonic, it's like based on your opponent playing there after your Negasonic, you know. So Danger is like you can see the targets and like, okay, I know that's gonna go away after I play Danger and activate it here. So I think that's something that I really prefer. Like you got more agency, you got more control. With Negasonic, if your opponents like really go a really heads up, they know that all right, turn 6, the Negasonic's gonna be here. I'm gonna play the small guy here, and it's gonna like eat up the effect of Negasonic. Whereas for Danger, you can just like choose the target because it's already on the board.
So Bastion to me is weird. I feel like I expected him to be a Cerebro 3 card, which I think he is, but they just like nuked Cerebro 3 almost by accident, because the premise of Cerebro 3 for the last 2 months or so has been it's the Cerebro deck that beats the mid-range decks, but also it gets to be a pseudo mid-range deck because it gets to play Killmonger, gets to play Negasonic, gets to play Juggernaut, gets to play Cosmo, right? It lost Juggernaut probably permanently, and it lost the other 3 at least temporarily. So now, like, Bastion comes out, one of the decks it's supposed to go in is just not really all that good anymore. But the other deck it goes in, and this is the one I didn't expect, is Discard. Stacking up Dakins, stacking up Bullseye, stacking up Morbius, stacking up Collectors. Discard has a pretty big delta between the games where it draws its good cards and the games where it doesn't. And replacing some of its cards with cards that copy your good cards doesn't change that, but it does mean you win a lot more when you draw your good cards. And that's something that I've been very impressed with Bastion doing. But outside of Discard, outside of Cerebro 3, I think it's likely that it's probably not best in slot in Victoria hand. It's pretty good, and if you are only worried about the mirror, it can definitely help you win that, but I don't think it's like the only thing you can do in that situation. So you end up with a card that I think has some homes, and especially in Discard and probably Cerebro 3, I think it ends up being best in slot. But I don't know that it does things out of those very niche cases.
Yeah, we were actually right about a lot of things when it comes to like we obviously didn't call for the discard thing, but we were right about like the fact that Victoria hand is just too tight of a deck to fit something like this in, because the turns are like a lot of things in Victoria hand decks are like pre-decided, like you need to do this on this turn for your maximum point output, you know. So there's no real room for Bastion to fit. But yeah, Bastion fitting in this card is kind of, it does make sense though, honestly, because like you said, right, it doesn't change the fact that if you're drawing bad, you will still lose because the deck needs to draw in a very specific order at a specific time. But with Bastion, you kind of, if you draw the good hands, you kind of compound the good hands, you know. And I think that's what Bastion does for the deck, which I think is really important, right? Because like if you want to win, you win hard. And when a deck like this card that needs to draw in a specific order is able to win, you want it to win hard, you know. So Bastion like helps with the whole winning harder thing. But obviously, like you said, it doesn't change the fact that if you draw out of order, it's still a bunch of just vanilla cards.
So now that we've talked about all the potential changes coming up, it's time to look at the potential or the realized changes that already happened. We have the tech nerfs. Nerfs to a wide variety of tech cards, Shang-Chi, Killmonger, chief among them. But one thing I really do think that should be commended about this is a lot of people instinctively saw what happened, and they were like, this metagame is going to suck. It's just going to be about the biggest numbers possible. And the reason it's not like that is because they didn't nerf Mobius and they didn't nerf Stardust, and the Invisible Woman First Steps deck is just still good enough, full stop. It is just still good enough to compete. It can't compete on 3 lanes with a Scar deck, but it can compete on 2 lanes with a Scar deck. And I think that specific dynamic is part of what makes Marvel Snap so great, because a deck that outputs far less points but understands which lanes it's trying to win and has cards like Juggernaut in it is going to be able to go head to head with a deck that is outputting 20 or 30 more power than it in an average game because of the way location space impacts the game. And I think that dynamic is what has kept this metagame good, because without that dynamic, you wouldn't be able to play these Stardust decks, and people would be playing a bunch of Hela, and then they would be playing a bunch of Mr. Negative, and we would just be in who can make the biggest number land. But we're not in that land. Well, where we are, though, is a land with a pretty high floor, because if you do not have the point output to compete with a Nightmare deck, a Sauron deck, whatever you want to call it, where people are playing a bunch of 10s. If you don't have the point output to compete with that, you're just going to get run over by it. If you're playing like normal Marvel Snap and you run into those decks, you just get crushed. So there is a very high barrier to entry, and it does make me see like, okay, I get why Shang-Chi is good for the metagame, at least in that context. Like, it makes sense to me. But I will say this largely, I don't think this metagame has been nearly as bad as many people thought it would be.
Yeah, so the cool thing is, firstly, like you said, they didn't nuke the floodgates, right? Which is Stardust and Mobius. Those are the cards that keep the wombo combo stuff a little bit under control as well. I mean, if they even nuke that one as well, then you'd see like biggest number win combo decks being everywhere. But it's currently not like the most prominent thing, you know. The Nightmare like Sauron stuff is actually pretty prominent as well. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, I feel like this wasn't honestly a good Shang-Chi meta anyway. So like the nerf to Shang-Chi here didn't hurt, right? So that's one tech card that I would say could just get nerfed at this point in time, like which it did, and then it wouldn't see much of a change in the meta, which it also didn't. It didn't really affect, right, the Shang-Chi nerf, right? So I think in general, what they did was pretty smart, you know. Like they kept some of the floodgates, they nerfed some of the tech that didn't really matter much, you know. It's just a very big deal whereby when people see that, oh, Shang-Chi finally gets nerfed, Killmonger gets nerfed, is it like Marvel Snap 2.0 or whatever? But like the thing is, like they got nerfed in a period whereby they weren't super relevant. So I guess that was overall a very smart decision on like Second Dinner's part.
Which brings us to part 2, which is they said they're going to revert probably all of these, most of them at the very least, right? And I have a couple of thoughts on which ones are good to revert and which ones aren't. And okay. I'll say this. I think they do need to revert Shang-Chi. And it's not because I have any great love for Shang-Chi, but it is because specifically of how good various versions of Sauron, Surtur, Nightmare, whatever are. Because I think it will be very hard for them to make new cards that are good into that. Because that doesn't necessarily turn the game into all stat checking, but it does say, effectively, I am the floor on the metagame. You can't meaningfully interact with what I'm doing here. You can only interact on the points axis. And I think that's where you start to see Shang-Chi's utility, because he effectively keeps the metagame at a lower floor to entry, which means decks like Morgan Le Fay, for example, are more playable, right? Which brings me to the second reversion topic, which is Killmonger. I am not convinced offensive Killmonger needs to exist. A lot of these other cards are like holding something back that would otherwise be bad for the metagame. Like we talked about Shang-Chi. I think it's cool that Sauron is good for a couple weeks. I don't think you want that to be the floor to every metagame. You just don't want that in a long-term kind of situation. But Killmonger's not doing anything. Killmonger's not holding Zoo back. Like, Zoo does not need to be held back. Killmonger is not holding back anything in a meaningful way. I think offensive Killmonger honestly just sucks. I do think there are decks that miss proactive Killmonger in the sense of, like, I'm a Morgan Le Fay deck. I'm a Deadpool deck. I miss being able to play this card. I almost think he should be reworked to be like a 3/6 that does it to your stuff. Like, I almost think that's what Killmonger is supposed to be at this point, because I don't think offensive Killmonger is meaningfully helping the metagame do anything. I think it is almost always actually like a force multiplier on stuff like Gambit or Danger or Negasonic or whatever, right? Like that's what it's doing. It's saying, I'm going to get rid of the small stuff that I would otherwise be targeting with this boom boom. And that makes the boom boom better, right? I think that's probably bad, if anything. But I do miss it in the context of Morgan Le Fay, and I do miss it in the context of Deadpool, and I want it back in those forms at least.
The Killmonger one is really interesting to me because I actually like quite agree, right? Like the decks that get hurt from Killmonger being the way it is right now, like Destroy, like Deadpool. I mean, Destroy Deadpool wasn't exactly an insanely good deck, but it's like borderline horrible now, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the point is to blow up the Deadpool, you know. So I think that card, Deadpool, sorry, not Deadpool, Killmonger definitely could possibly be reverted. But yeah, I know. And when you mentioned Zoo, I just laughed a bit because I realized that like KM just loves Zoo, and then it's not gonna hurt Zoo anyway. Zoo is not that playable, but like whatever. Yeah. So the thing that I really want reverted, we will talk about it like later down anyway. But like Enchantress, guys, like it's quite obviously above. Honestly, it's quite obviously above.
You want it reverted? You want it to go back?
I mean, the stat line now is insane. It's like it's not even a tech card. You can slam it on the board on 5 for the sake of slamming it on the board on 5. Like, okay, we can talk a bit more about that later. Like, I don't really have much else to say. Like the Shang-Chi one, to be honest, I never was really a fan of like nerfing Shang-Chi. This is me being very consistent here, by the way. I always like the fact that there's like a 10 power stat check guy on the field. I did suggest that maybe Shang-Chi could be like a bit more conditional, but his effect of like blowing up every single 10, I was totally fine with that. So like, I mean, that could go back and I would be totally okay with that as well.
Deadpool's Diner is a bit different this season. You're effectively playing against the house. So when your opponent snaps, you're not losing the amount of cubes or bubs or whatever it is in Deadpool's Diner that they put you in for. You are effectively betting against the house as opposed to betting against your opponent, which should make it suck a lot less, is my understanding. It should put things a lot more within your control, and it should make the general process of playing Deadpool's Diner a little bit better. However, what they've also done is they have now appended like what seems to be a mission shop onto it. And so that means that, like, if I had to guess, I would guess there's like a card available in the mission shop and then a card available on the Deadpool's Diner track. And one of them is Danger and one of them is Super Adaptoid. That is my guess at understanding how this is going to go. I believe it's a 2-week event. I'm not positive. And I don't know what their prices are. And that obviously freaks me out, right? Because what if they Kid Omega us again, right? Like anytime we go into an event and I'm like, I think this event could be cool, but I don't know what the prices of these cards are going to be. I don't want to like instinctively praise the event because what happens if the prices are Kid Omega? Now, the good news is, I guess the thing is, I don't know if they know how good Danger is. Like, I think that it is entirely possible that they don't know how good I think this card is. You know what I mean? Like, I think this card is quite good, and I will want to go out there and get it. And I'm hoping, because it's a Series 4 card, right? Like, when you look at these cards, I'm pretty sure Danger is Series 4 and Super Adaptoid is Series 5. And it's like, okay, so hopefully they mess this one up. Because, like, if they
it's going to be cheaper for everyone to get the better card, yeah.
Yes, that's sort of what I'm hoping is going to happen here.
It's so weird, though. Like, I don't want to agree that like they don't know how the good Danger could be. I mean, we are speculating right now, right?
Yes,
like you think
obviously.
it's good. I looked at it and I also think it's good just from looking at it. You know, like I really hope that they know and they're just like doing it this way on purpose. Like, all right, you get the better card for free, and then the other very specific conditional tech card is like whatever if you want to. Maybe this is on purpose because I find it difficult to believe that they don't know the Danger could be good. But yeah, so another thing that I just find interesting and doesn't really have anything to do with like Marvel Snap in particular, which is this Deadpool's Diner is effectively like easy mode, right? And like less stress because when you raise, correct me if I'm wrong, like when you raise the stakes, your opponent doesn't actually get raised stakes. Yes. They just play with their original stakes. So like if you can lose more, but or your opponent can lose, but when they lose, it's like the same amount that they bet, not just because you raise, right? Like when you raise, they don't raise with you. Yeah, okay, that's correct. Right? When you raise, they don't raise with you, which is like easy mode. It's like if you can play poker like this, there's like no risk. Okay, obviously you can't play poker like this. But I guess this is just meant to be like the casualest like version of Deadpool Diner ever, because there's like really no risk from you or your opponent. Like if your opponent just like goes like raise, and then you're just like, oh sure, I'll just play because I don't lose more, you know. Casual mode, I'm down. Just very interesting that they took this approach.
I'm reading into you saying very interesting that they took this approach as something along the lines of like, I can't believe they made poker this easy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, because I know that like I would probably not enjoy it. All right, like, honestly, I would probably not enjoy something this level of low stakes, because like it's just me. But like I think there's a lot of casual players out there that would just be like, oh nice, I can just get my card with no effort and no stress. But that's not something for me, man.
Last up, Lambie, I believe you have a love letter to 5/8 Enchantress that you have to speak your heart about.
I mean, this is a buff. Like, I mean, okay, so okay, it's a buff, it's a contextual buff. So the thing is, like, Enchantress previously as a 4-drop, I mean, it did its job, right? But the thing is, like, now at 5/8, it's just like a bigger, it's like one stat more expensive, but at the same time, it's got more power. And the thing is, right, Enchantress never really had a good pairing at 4 anyway. It's not like you go like 4 cost Enchantress plus a 2. Like there's no like absurd 2-drop plus your 4 cost Enchantress that just like farms, you know. So like there wasn't really a good pairing anyway. And then now you get it at 5/8 when it never had a really good pairing in the current meta anyway. I just think 5/8 Enchantress is a buff in terms of stat line, you know, and like the and what it hits is still the same. It's just that it's just bigger right now in terms of like as a power card. I think it's a buff. I would very easily let this get reverted with like, I wouldn't even complain. I wouldn't even think about it. Like if they choose to revert this, I'm just gonna be like, that's fine. Like now it's good. Now, I mean, it was a good card. Now it's even better.
Yeah, I'll go the other way and I'll say they should not revert this. They should keep.
So you want to leave this as a power card at 5/8?
Yes. I think everything you said is an argument for keeping it where it is. I'll give you another argument for keeping it where it is. It now creates meaningful distance from Rogue. Because previously, you would just never play Rogue, because the amount of decks that actually get value out of stealing an ongoing versus just turning it off, 95% of the time you're playing Rogue, it's just, I'm going to turn off my opponent's thing. I'm not getting a lot out of stealing it, right? I'm turning it off. And a lot of the time, it was just like, why would I ever play that if I could just play Enchantress? It's a 4/6, it's better stats, it does the same thing. I'm just turning off their thing. Now, there's a meaningful gap where it's like, what if I can't afford a 5-drop? What if I need a cheap anti-ongoing card, and that gives Rogue an actual option to exist that more or less previously didn't exist? I would say this is like an objectively good balance change that they made. Like, they made it as a bit, but I think they stumbled onto something that's actually good.
So, like, you think that the fact that it's a 5/8 now gives Rogue purpose, is what you're trying to say. Like, it gives Rogue a bit more purpose.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, it does though. It does give Rogue more purpose, right? Like, if you cannot fit a 5 in your deck, like for whatever reason, your deck just can't curve out nicely for 5. But honestly, why can't you? Like, I'm just thinking, like, this is why can't you? You would want to play a 5/8 that gets rid of the ongoings of your opponent's side of the board, right? You would want to do that. Like, you actually want to do that in many decks, you know. That's what I'm thinking. But this is in context with the current meta. So obviously things can change in the future. But like for now, I find it difficult to not want to play a 5/8 that just get rid of all ongoings. And even if you don't, it's a 5/8. That's what I'm thinking.
So with that, I've been KMBest. He's been Lambie Series. We've been 8 Cubes, and he's gonna take us out.
All right, guys. Hope you like this one. Comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.